Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Hawkeye Nation, to another episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast, your daily podcast covering your Iowa Hawkeyes on the Locked On Sports Network. As always, I am your host, Andrew Wade. Excited to be back for another show today. We are kicking off an awesome week as we get into the Iowa-Wisconsin game, and we are joined here by Iowa commit Caden Crawford. Caden, my man, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Obviously, you're kind of struggling. The Chiefs just lost. I'm a Broncos fan. I haven't been happy in 4 or 5 years, so it's you can feel my pain now. You've at least had some good runs, though.
Yeah, it's been rough this year.
Absolutely, man. So when we talked last, it was, I believe, in March, and you had just committed to Iowa. We spoke about 3 weeks after that. A lot has changed since we talked. I mean, that was what, 6 months ago at that point, 7 months ago, and I feel like a lot has been flipped upside down. You've made several big decisions to this point already. You've also visited Iowa a lot more after having committed to Iowa, and Iowa got off to quite a hot start. So we're going to talk about all that today. Before we get into any of that, though, I want to thank all of you Hawkeye listeners out there for making the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast your first listen every single day. You can find the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast wherever you get podcasts at, and also on YouTube for free Monday through Friday at Locked On Hawkeyes. So, Caden, let's kick it off. The first thing, when we talked, the biggest thing I took away from that is you were not sure of whether or not you wanted to enroll early to the University of Iowa. You have since decided that you are enrolling early. So walk me through that decision. What brought you to that decision? What are you excited about with that? What are you nervous about with that?
So just kind of going back and forth throughout the spring and summer with my parents, my coaches, just decided it was the best decision for me to graduate early for my goals, which obviously play early in my career, whether that's first year, second year. Obviously, I want to play my first year there. That's what everyone wants to do. But I thought it puts me in the best position to play earliest in my career.
Absolutely. And does it help seeing guys like Connor Colby, Arland Bruce, Keegan Johnson? I mean, those three guys, they also enrolled early. And this is not a normal thing for a Kirk Ferentz team. He, from everything I understand, right? I'm not obviously being recruited to play football for Kirk, but he wants you to do what's best for you. What's best for you and what you want to do. So with that all being said, how much of an impact has the success and playing time of Connor, Arland, and Keegan kind of factored into your decision?
Oh, it helped out a ton. Arland Bruce, also a Kansas kid, I talked to him a lot. He said that, I was talking to him about it, just graduating early put him so much far in front, just learning the playbook, getting used to being a college student, obviously the off-season weight room, getting in the program and stuff, and then talking with the coaches too. They all said either way, graduate early or enroll in the summer like most people do. It didn't matter. They'd obviously love for me to come up early, but either way is the right decision. Even some of them said, enjoy your senior year. Like, you only get it once. There's no need to rush it. And then some wanted me to come up, but either way was cool. So really just talking with most of the players, mainly Arland, about it is what helped me make my decision along with the coaches.
Absolutely. And when you had committed to Iowa, you had not officially visited Iowa to that point. Kind of an interesting time. You were kind of the main guinea pig of a class going through this COVID period. You decided to commit to Iowa, though, before having officially visited. Since then, you've been to Iowa, I believe, 4 times. Is that correct?
4 visits, and then one, I went up to one of the spring games. So 4 or 5, however way you want to count it.
Awesome. And how has that been for you, man? Is it everything you had thought it would be?
Yeah, it was everything I thought, and then add a little on to my official visit. It was kind of crazy because it was like my first real college visit, just with all the other dudes and meeting the coaches in person and seeing the facilities. I mean, I went up in the spring and got to see them practice, but really hadn't talked to the coaches in person or been anything like behind the scenes with all the facilities and tours and stuff. But it was awesome. Amazing top tier facilities, one of the best nutrition tables in the country. Obviously they feed their players well and they train them well, as most of you guys know, but it's been awesome. I went to that, and then I've been to 3 games this year: the Indiana game, the Kent State game, and then the Penn State game.
All right, well, I got to ask you about the Penn State game here in a little bit, but you mentioned nutrition. Your 24/7 sports profile has you at 240 pounds. I know one of the things we talked about was putting on more weight. Where are you at today?
Just because the football season wear and tear, I'm between 240 and 245. I imagine like once football season ends and like the last month or two before I go up there, I'll probably be 245 or high 240s, maybe 250 at most. I don't really want to put on too much weight because they said, I mean, if you come in and you just put on this weight, they'll take it off and put it on right. So I'm not super focused on just adding a ton of weight, but I just want to stay clean weight and making sure that I'm still up there.
I love it, man. And so I know you were really close with Aaron Graves. I know you talked to him quite a bit. How, as this recruiting class has developed, how have you gotten close with some of the other guys in the class?
Like social media is a huge thing. Talking to them on Twitter, like retweeting stuff, telling them to commit. And then on the visits too, talking to them about how they feel. And so many people are always like, commit here. And I don't really want to be like that. I just want to like see where they're at, tell them that, I mean, no pressure. It's obviously your decision. You got to do what's best for you. We'd love to have you here. But I've gotten close to a lot of the commits, like Carson May, Addison. I've talked to them a lot on social media. Obviously, Aaron too, and then like Cale Crow and Jack Dotzler also are the ones I'm pretty close with.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I've talked to Addison I think twice. Very good kid. Really excited to see him in an Iowa Hawkeye uniform as well. So you mentioned the Indiana game, the Kent State game, and Penn State game. First, let's talk about Indiana. What was it like being in Kinnick? Because I feel like Kinnick would have been just bumping and loud for Indiana, but also I want to get your perspective of seeing Indiana versus Penn State and what that crowd was like.
Like I've been to a few like games growing up, college football games. But nothing like the Indiana game was like the loudest it's ever been, especially with like first game, all the students coming back. It was crazy. People were I got there early for like the recruiting stuff, and people were tailgating hard, like 4 or 5 before the game. So it was pretty cool. And then just how loud it was. Like there were a lot of like Tyler Goodson starts off the game with a 50 whatever yard run, and then Riley Moss gets 2 pick sixes. It was crazy. And then compared to the Penn State game, man, it's not comparable. The Penn State game, the energy was up the entire time. Obviously, in the first half, the offense and defense struggled a little bit, but towards the end, like once they started getting real loud and they started false starting, you couldn't like hear the person talking next to you. It was quite an experience.
Dude, that's amazing. How excited did that experience get you for being able to play at Kinnick Stadium at night in a ranked game like that in the future?
Oh, it was awesome. Like we were sideline warming up, like we were down there. I was ready to go out and play. I mean, it was.
Dude, that's super cool. Did you rush the field with the other guys?
Man, I tried to. There's just so many people. I kind of like stood up towards the tunnel and like with all the players or whatever when they're walking by, but I was not one of the first ones to go down now.
That's fair. I mean, it kind of gets a little dangerous when you get down there at certain parts, and it's just pretty cool to be down there anyways. So are you planning on being there again the rest of the season? Are you planning on going back up to Iowa, or are you good for the rest of the year?
I think the Minnesota game, they got 2 more home games. I think Illinois and Minnesota. Is that right?
Yep.
I'm pretty sure I'll try and go to the Minnesota game. I'm not sure about the Illinois game yet, though.
Fair enough. Well, if you're at the Illinois game, let me know, man. I will be out there as well. I would love to meet you. A lot of things have changed, obviously, since March, though. We talked about the recruiting aspect. Name, image, likeness is also something that has popped up. Having talked to you doesn't seem like that's something that you would probably care about a lot. You're probably very focused on being at Iowa and getting ready for stuff. But just wanted to get a sense from you. What has been your thoughts on name, image, likeness?
I think it's a great thing. Way for players to express themselves and obviously gain revenue off their name. I mean, there's a lot of high schoolers that have already gotten deals and stuff, but I'm not super nervous about it or worried about it. Like if something happens, an opportunity comes up, awesome, but I'm not going to be like out there stressing about trying to get a deal and get a buck here or there. I'm not too worried about it.
Absolutely. If you had to do a brand deal with one company in the entire country, it could be anything, what would you do?
Man, I don't even know. I think like Carhartt would be pretty cool because they got a lot of cool stuff. But
I love it, man. I love it. Actually, was just spending some time with a bunch of my family from Iowa, and everyone was wearing Carhartt. I forgot what it's like to be back in Iowa. I'm in Denver now. You don't see a lot of Carhartt in Denver, so. Well, cool. Last thing I'd ask you then, as far as this season goes, Iowa started off 6-1. What were your thoughts coming into the season as far as expectations for this team? And what are your thoughts now after seeing Iowa go 6-1? How excited are you to join a team that is a top 10 program and continue that on?
Yeah, so to start the season, I mean, a lot of people were picking Iowa to lose 3 games out of the first, something like that. I didn't really think so, just the way they played last year towards the end of the year. And then after they beat Indiana the first game, I thought like the team was pretty legit, and people were still doubting them. And I had no doubt in my mind they're going to beat Iowa State because it's just Iowa State.
I love it,
Um,
man.
and I mean, the 2 games, the Kent State and Colorado State, people try and overlook them. That they're not good teams. Colorado State's a really good team, but like people don't realize. Kent State, we played not very good against either of those teams, to be honest. And then the Penn State game was that, yeah, Penn State game we didn't,
Yep.
or
There's Maryland and Penn State. Yep.
Maryland, I didn't get to see because I was playing that night, but I watched the like rerun of it or whatever, and they had 7 turnovers. Playing out of their minds. Offense was playing great too, and obviously a great team. And then Penn State, everyone knows how that game went. So I thought they started out real well, and then Purdue, a lot of talk all week about David Bell, and he just torched us. And I think I don't get a bye week to kind of sit down. A lot of like fans and stuff are pointing fingers at people and like who needs to do what, but I think it's good just to like recollect during the bye week, and I think they'll come out pretty good this next week.
Yeah, I sure hope so as well. How does it, you mentioned one thing I wanted to touch on, and you can decline to answer, but as fans say stuff on Twitter, right? Everyone has an opinion, everyone's talking. Kind of my big mantra is I don't want to ever throw anyone under the bus, right? You're playing a game for free essentially. I mean, you're getting a scholarship, you have NIL stuff, but at the end of the day, you're putting a lot on the line, and so I don't want to throw any players under the bus, but there's a contingent of people who do across all fan bases. Do you see that kind of stuff? What do people talk about that stuff as recruits? I'm seriously curious, like how big of an impact does that have on recruiting for people?
Recruits really they don't really talk about players or nothing like that. They kind of just talk about the program really. I mean, that's how a lot of dudes I've talked with, that's what it's about. And then the fans saying stuff, like a lot of people will say stuff about this or that, but ultimately like I mean, they can say whatever they want and completely cool with that. That's fine or whatever. But none of us truly know unless you're on the team, like what's going on behind the doors and stuff, reporters and everything. So I think ultimately whoever the coaches put on the field is the best because that's what they're with them every day. When you don't see them, most people just see them sometimes at practice and then on Saturdays, but no one really knows on behind the doors and while they're working.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like from a recruiting aspect, fans chirping on Twitter about players isn't bothering folks, which is good. You never want to be listening to the Twitterverse. If you're in that mode, then probably have other things you should be focusing on, right?
Right.
Absolutely, man. Well, cool, Caden. As always, really enjoyed chatting with you. Where can the folks find you at? And obviously, how much more of your senior season do you have left? Are you almost done with your football season?
Yeah, this week will be the first week of playoffs, and then depending on how we do, you know how it goes, lose you're done.
Yep.
Plan. But yeah.
Awesome. Where can folks find you at, man?
Oh, like on social media and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, my Twitter's Caden Crawford 0, and then my Instagram's Caden.w.Crawford.
Love, man. Go follow Caden out there so we can make some money off those NIL deals at some point in time. Caden, as always, it's a pleasure talking to you, buddy. And I think the next time we'll probably chat, you'll be an Iowa Hawkeye, man. So good luck and looking forward to that, pal.
Yep. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man.